Well, Israel remains poised to invade Gaza tonight, but it's been poised now for more than 2 weeks. It's still waiting. It is a situation that is simply not sustainable. Joining us now is former ambassador to Iraq and Turkey, James Jeffrey. He's also the chair of the Middle East program for the Wilson Center. Ambassador, thank you so much for being here. This can't continue. They can't be on hold like this indefinitely.
Thank you for having me on, Elizabeth. No, they cannot. Remember, Israel has mobilized 360,000 reservists. With their active duty troops, that's 500,000. To put that in perspective, that would be like 5 million American people in the military today. That's over half who we had in World War II. They cannot keep that force present. But without that force, with Hamas ready to attack again, perhaps with Hezbollah, they're facing a military problem. We talk about the refugees, we talk about the hostages, we talk about the civilian casualties or a wider war. The key thing is Israel cannot face an attack like the 7th of October from the south and a bigger attack from Lebanese Hezbollah supported by Iran in the north simultaneously. And the next president might not be so quick to move aircraft carriers as President Biden did. That's the dilemma, military dilemma they have. And the solution to it is a devastating destruction of Hamas's military capability. They did that to Hezbollah in Lebanon in 2006. Up till now, it has worked.
Right, but we keep hearing reports that the United States is urging Israel to basically slow its roll, to not go in with this ground invasion, to continue where there's furious negotiating going on behind the scenes to secure the release of some of these 200-plus hostages, some of them babies, some of them elderly people over the age of 80. But the Israeli army, all 500,000 of them, can't just sit on the border of Gaza indefinitely in uniform waiting to get the go-ahead. And the rest of the country is basically on hold, on pause. Nothing's happening in Israel right now because so many areas have been evacuated or destroyed in the attack.
Elizabeth, you're right. And I've worked with all of these people, including then Vice President Biden. They understand the predicament. But there's two problems. First of all, there's a real reason to hold off. There may be a chance of getting some of the refugees back through negotiations. That would ease Israel's problems. Secondly, we're still rushing reinforcements into the entire region. The threat is that when Israel goes in, Hezbollah in southern Lebanon and maybe Iran and other Iranian surrogates will start attacking Israel or even us. We need to have more forces in the region to deter that. That's happening. Beyond that, I think that there is a certain reluctance. Israel is in a state of war because of what Hamas did, and they have to deal with this in a military sense. That's hard for Americans to get their minds around. Frankly, the one who can do this best of all of them is President Biden, and thus he knows, while he may caution restraint, caution delay, he's not going to tell the Israelis not to go in.
Right.
Because what's the alternative?
Right. Well, you've been an ambassador in this region before. We heard Secretary of State Antony Blinken at the United Nations warn Iran that the U.S. will respond decisively to any attack. What kind of attack do you think would merit drawing in the United States military in that decisive response?
We have a good example, Elizabeth, because it happened a few days ago in the Red Sea. One of the ships President Biden deployed intercepted some 20 cruise missiles and drones fired by the Iranian surrogate in Yemen, the Houthis, towards Israel. So that is already American forces defending Israel by shooting down the missiles and rockets, which is the main threat of Hezbollah in southern Lebanon and Iran, some 1,000 kilometers away. They can fire large quantities of these missiles and rockets, far more than Hamas, but we now have a large fleet that can stop them. Hezbollah, go ahead.
Do you think that the amount of military force that we have assembled there and that is on the way to the region will be enough to deter Iran?
Elizabeth, I've been doing this since Vietnam in 1972. It's very hard to calculate in advance what's enough to really win and what's enough to convince the other side that they will lose if they attack you. I suspect President Biden's strong language right at the beginning, where you'll remember, don't. And suddenly, from a military that often complains about it doesn't have enough money, and it doesn't, they're right, but still, suddenly we came up with 2 aircraft carriers, a small aircraft carrier equivalent to Bataan, and 15 other ships and thousands of troops we've moved in. That's
Right.
impressive.
Okay.
Iran will think twice.
Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.